Hey everyone! Two new faces on the console. Down here we have
It's Lady J, and above we have.
Crozier. You might have heard of us joining the council, but this is our first video on here that we're doing, Jess and I together and without anyone else from the council. And yeah, it's really exciting. We thought, what is the best thing we could do and the best thing we could bring to this amazing community? You see it here on the left.
Cloggers.
Cloggers. So before you hit the dislike button, guys, give us a second to explain ourselves, because we realize not everyone likes cloggers. It might be a bit controversial on the letter and in the community, but the way we see it is that whether you like cloggers or not, you can actually learn something from this guide. If you want to learn how to play it, if you want to play cloggers yourself, obviously we'll say we talk about our experiences and how we think the deck is best played, talk about some general strategies and all that. But if you hate cloggers and you want to learn how to beat it, this guide can also be helpful to you, because I always honestly think the best way to learn how to play against the deck is by either playing it yourself or watching someone play it, and to see their trail of thought. And we're going to go out of our way as well to show you and to explain what we think our opponent could do to basically beat our game plan, to disrupt us, to keep us from clogging successfully, and so on and so forth. Even going beyond just them not drawing their cards or drawing their cards. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Go on.
Okay, so without further ado, I'd say we should take a look at this list that is a bit of a hybrid list based on something that Energix cooked up a while back. We'll talk about that in more detail later, and about some alternatives as well. The deck link is, of course, in the description. So, Ms. Lady J, what do we have here in the list? Maybe before we talk about the individual cards, we can briefly say what the general strategy is that we are going for with the deck.
All right, so this is a Serenova deck, so obviously 9 provisions or less in the deck. Basically, you want to clog your opponent's first 2 rounds, especially the first round, and you want to thin as much as possible at the same time. This deck does much better when it's on red coin, because then your opponent can't just discard cards when they don't want to be clogged, because they have to play if they don't want to lose uneven.
That goes already into the territory of what the opponent can do to disrupt us, because as just said, right, we want to thin, we want to clog, and the opponent would like to at least keep us from clogging too much. And the things that we would be weak against here, obviously, if that's what we're going for, is anything that is actually toll removal heavy, or just capable of resetting our Colgrim or our Viper Witch Elementals, because they are the main source of points for our deck, right? So if an opponent's deck is thinning a lot themselves, and on top of that, especially when they have a lot of removal options, then Colgrim can already be in a pretty disadvantaged spot, or the Cloggers deck, because they can end up disrupting our strategy quite a bit.
Indeed.
So,
and also when your opponent manipulates their own deck, such as Maxi or Bank, then it can be an issue.
Exactly, and those are not even that uncommon, right? This can always happen, so you gotta keep that in mind when you're Cloggers. Those are like the obvious things that can go wrong. And then in general, what you want to do with this specific iteration, or with basically any Serenova deck, is that you push round 2 in almost every single case. That's the idea, so that you can try to get as much removal out of the opponent as possible, and also that you create a short round in round 3 for your mentor and your Colgrim to take over. And there's a few more advanced strategies that we'll talk about a bit later, but maybe we can go card by card here and talk about the individual components that make up this deck. Do you want to start, Jess?
So, we've got Lamp, because we don't want anything that boosts our cards, because we mainly want to clog our opponents as much as possible. We don't have engines per se, besides Cobram, but that's near the end.
Mhm.
And we just want to spam points on the board as quickly as possible to get them out of the round as quick as possible so that we can clog round 2.
Mhm. Or at least survive until we're in mentor
yes.
range, yeah.
Serenova. So she obviously can be tutored with also double cross quite easily. So you have ways of getting her if you really need her for like a big reach. But mainly you want to play her in round 2 when you got carryover for round 3, because when you're pushing round 2, you normally go a card down if you haven't won on even, and then that carryover can help you with that card disadvantage in round 3.
Mhm.
But if you
Sometimes,
really want,
yeah, continue.
if you really want to win on even, you can sometimes use her to just
Yeah.
to push that.
In general, I wouldn't say it's like the end of the world to play in round 1. And it helps you pushing in round 2. Sometimes, you know, you avoid going a card down in round 2. It's a similar effect, right? Instead of having her to not go to make up for going down a card, you can use her, keep your card, and then maybe push from a more advantaged position in round 2. So it's quite versatile, and it helps with this approach that you want to push anyway. Okay, then maybe before we talk about defender here, we can talk about the man himself.
The big boy witcher. So obviously you want to use him for round 3. You do not want to use him. There might be niche situations where you want to use him round 2, where you think that you can 2-0 them, the opponents. But mainly you want to use it for round 3, especially with defender. So with this deck normally I get a Colgrim on average around 12 points per turn. So that's if they haven't like discarded the stuff that I've clogged in their deck. But he is very vulnerable to, like what Crozier says, to toll punishment or resets. So yes.
And sometimes locks, which at least halves his value because the second trigger doesn't go through anymore. Now, of course, Colgrim, most of you should know by now, he buffs himself by the difference between your opponent's deck and your own deck. So throughout the game, you want to make sure that regardless of how much your opponent thinned, you want to create the biggest pile of cards possible, quite literally, on the opponent's deck. Mainly consisting of garbage cards, if possible at all, so that Colgrim grows by a lot each turn that he's down. And maybe we can summarize a bit here what cards do this. We have, if we start at the bottom here, of course, the Viper Witcher that spawns a copy of the opponent's unit that you're targeting here, starting at Adrenaline 6. Which ideally you want to do on a token, of course, but sometimes you just put it on a 4p or worst case 5p card. As you remember, it's important that you want to try to make the opponent not find their heat wave, or hope that if they have it, they don't draw it. So you try to put things in there, even if they're 5p cards, or sometimes even better cards, so you make it less likely that they find that toll removal. And the same is true for all these other options. You have coded weapons that kills something and then puts that on top of it died. You have Cynthia that puts a guardian there that always goes, no matter, you don't have to target anything, right? And then you have Atarius Vigo and Gotho Great, which obviously go beyond just potentially clogging the opponent, but they potentially can do so. Gotho Great's order ability, of course, can always be used and should probably almost always be used to clog the opponent. Exception is when the opponent already played their toll units and then your Viper Witcher Mentor needs a better target to hit, then you can use it for a high provision unit, but we'll get into that later. But yeah, in general, you have quite a lot of options to clog your opponent. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on the Gotho Great. And I think that's about it, right? 8 options to clog. Did I count right?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
7, 8 on Gotho.
Yes.
So, yeah, it's eight clogs. And now here, one very important thing we want to say is that, of course, the rule of 5 is extremely important in clogging. Okay, the rule of 5 says that you want to ideally, best case round 2, have clogged your opponent 5 times. That's like the dream scenario. Clog your opponent 5 times in round 2, going into round 3. Because if you've clogged your opponent 5 magical times, that means that all his 3 draws in round 3 plus his 2 mulligans are only the cards that you put on top of his deck. Clogging more than 5 is useless because you don't draw 6 cards, right? Unless you do it in round 1. If you have such an amazing clogging hand and they keep giving you targets, that will rarely happen. And of course, for any echo card they play, you have to clock them 1 time less because the echo card's going to be on top of the deck anyway. And then the additional clock won't have done anything. That can actually be important when you decide, okay, do I get another clock here with Gothel Grid, or do you just go for something like a Mentor or a YOLO Alchemist? So yeah, there's that. And then maybe Jess, you can talk about the Viper Witcher Mentors, which is maybe the last true key component of this deck.
Yeah, so Viper Witcher Mentors, as they say, they set the power of this card to match the highest cost, provision cost of the highest card in your opponent's deck. Oh wait, I said that completely wrong. Set the power of this card to match the provision cost of the highest cost card in your opponent's deck instead, if it's Adrenaline 2. If it's not Adrenaline, it's just gonna set the provision of the card that's on top of the deck of your opponent's deck. And sometimes that can screw you over. You don't know what's on top there. Sometimes you get lucky, it's 12 points. Sometimes all of a sudden there's a Guardian on top of the deck and that's a token, so it's gonna die.
Yeah, so usually it's not there all of a sudden, it's there once you've placed it there. So I mean, this happens to every Cloggers player at some point. It's like you losing your Scorched Virginity. You're gonna play a 0-point Mentor because you play it after you play Cynthia with the Guardian. It's gonna happen to you too. If you watch this video, if you are an aspiring Cloggers player, you're gonna think to yourself, this is never gonna happen to me, I'm not a Pepega. And then you're gonna get the 0-point Mentor. Let me tell you, it happens. It happens because you just don't. You play Cynthia, your opponent plays something, and you think of 17 different plays, and you're like, okay, YOLO, I'm just gonna play a Mentor.
And then it dies because you just blanked out. Yeah,
it happens. So these guys, as Jess said, most of the round you can't really play them reliably unless you set them up with Gothel Grid. But of course, towards the end, starting with your third last card that you play, they play for the tallest provision unit or card actually in the opponent's deck. Ideally, that's an Aniromancy, can be a Horned, can be a Masquerade Ball, which is a bit rare nowadays, of course. But they can be huge. And even sometimes when you've lost Colgrim, you can still win with 1 or 2 Mentors for 26 points in round 2, right? Or round 3, sorry.
Also in round 2, when you're bleeding your opponent, you might want to play a Viper Witcher Mentor. Maybe you are quite far ahead, and it just gives you intel of what they haven't drawn, potentially, such as an Aniromancy. And you're like, oh, you don't have an Aniromancy, let's clog you some more.
Exactly. So it gives you an idea of what might be in the opponent's deck. Sometimes it actually gives you exact information in a meta that's figured out. And overall, it just is a very powerful card. In many situations, it wrecks rather rarely, and even if it does, you can try to re-enable it with Gothel Grid on something that's a higher provision in round 3 when you know your opponent already used the tutoring material. They can't get that good card out of their deck anymore, so you might as well pimp your Mentors with a portal or like a evolving card or something. Maybe lastly, 2 more things we want to point out. One, of course, is that you've got your Defender, Fion. It's something that you never really want to play the earliest before round 2. So like in round 2, you can drop Fion if you think you consider playing Colgrim as well to maybe 2-0 or to push him really to the limit here. But otherwise, this is of course always tied to defending your Colgrim. Very rarely, or only in rather unpleasant situations where you feel yourself seen forced to play him. Or if you know the opponent has exactly 1 Tor removal, you play Fion round 2, the opponent plays it on the Fion, and then you can just say, okay, I'm going to take my Colgrim round 3, because he's got no Tor removal anymore, right? And then you got it. And then the last key component, the last aspect of this deck that we should mention, is the thinning, and just maybe you can point out the different thinning options we have and what you might have to consider there.
We've got Roach, of course, obviously going to be played when you play a gold card from your hand. Knickers, he is unpredictable. You know, he's just going to jump out on the deck, on the board whenever he feels like it. Most of the times it's round 1. Sometimes he's a bit stubborn and it's round 2 and breaks your hand, but that hardly ever happens. Then there's most of the times you want to use Artorias Vigor for the hounds, the hunting pack that we have, especially when there's a state. Obviously, you want to play it when there's a status on your opponent's side of the board, because thinning is winning, and when you've done it with Artorias Vigor, you will thin to 0 if you've played all your thinning right on your side of the board.
Mm-hmm. So this is technically optional thinning, but if you do thin this way, then you might end up with the full thin to 0 package. Yeah.
Ulrich is also a big point swing with thinning. He is a 11-point swing, as far as I remember. Yes, he's 11 points. So that also helps, but also you need to be careful with your Alzo's double cross if you have Cynthia and Ciri in hand. Normally you want to mulligan one of them, because that can be a problem with the double cross and Ulrich.
Because it could find the Afan, and that is something you obviously don't want.
War Council obviously also thins, and Menno thins out the tactic from your deck. And Roderick thins a gold out of your deck.
Sometimes you have some chain reactions going on here where you thin one card after the next, and your deck empties itself really quickly. Usually when you want to thin with things like Roderick or War Council, ideally you want to have Knickers out already, so sometimes you might consider waiting a turn or another before it comes out, before you start thinning hard, but you don't always have to. It's just ideal to have them out already. And there's one nice synergy with Artorias, and that is that if you find Artorias from Roderick, you immediately have a status, because Roderick's got the spying status, so that Artorias can get the doggos out when you play him from Roderick 100% guaranteed.
Yes.
So yeah.
And other ways of enabling a status would be from the Viper Witches. I think they're Viper Witches at the bottom there. That apply bleed when you want to clog your opponent. Also, your leader has has 2 locks actually that can help with that. And of course, as Crozy said, the spy, Roderick.
Yeah, and we haven't really talked about the choice of leader here yet. But in general, it just sometimes helps you applying pressure when you see, okay, I can push someone this run really deep, and then they have maybe this one engine that they play for low tempo, and if you shut that down with the leader, then they start falling behind and you can push even harder. Or against Syndicate, I guess currently in Cove it's not that big of a deal. Sometimes you can shut down the spenders they have, but Cove has so many it doesn't really make a difference. Yeah, overall it's just a great way to help you gain round control, and it's flexible because you've got 2 charges. You're not super duper sad if you use both charges before round 3. You can still win just with Colgrim. But yeah, it's a nice tool to have throughout the first 2 rounds to make sure you get your game plan through.
One more thing I forgot to mention about Knickers. Always be careful when you want to play Roderick and you still have Knickers in the deck. I've had the situation before where Roderick showed me Knickers and Colgrim in round 1. So just be careful when you want to use Roderick.
Okay. And I see we're already 20 minutes in, but maybe we can just wrap it up by saying what matchups we can think of right now that are either pretty good or that are actually quite difficult in the current meta. What would you say?
Okay, so I think pretty good for Cloggers. Recently, I've been playing it a few days ago, and I have been winning against a lot of Cove, actually. It's also good against decks that have lots of tokens and like not so good bronzes, such as the Redea Elf list. Especially if they're not running Curse of Corruption in that deck. There's also... Oh, I just thought... What was it? Um,
Arrakis.
Arrakis, yes,
Uh-huh. And
and Skellige, the not the discard package,
mhm.
the normal warrior package. It can be good against that.
Yeah, when someone still plays the old school package, because the decks that you mentioned, of course, they give you tokens to copy, so you put really bad cards on top of your opponent's deck, and they can't often help themselves from playing these tokens without completely self-sabotaging their own game plan. And also, some of these decks like Cove, they are Devotion and like the old Iced list, the Warriors Iced, so that they struggle removing your Kolgrim, right? So Devotion decks tend to fall victim to this a bit easier than non-Devotion, because non-Devotion have Yeet Wave, and then you end up facing things like Kelly, which can be really difficult. Kelly in particular, actually, because it both has a lot of removal resets, and it barely has any units that you can clog, right? It hurts your game plan twice over. So Kolgrim's really difficult to beat. Sometimes traps can be tricky too, because they play no units. Sometimes they tend to play units in round one, so you get to clock something there. It's not hopeless, but under certain circumstances, it's very difficult to find value from your own cards against them. And then, of course, the traps and their removal can also be quite difficult to deal with for your Kolgrim. And then, of course, Reckless Flurry. Lately, with a lot of control cards in it, with Morkvark, Axie, Yeet Wave, and so on. They go through your defender, they reset your stuff, and it's tough. But, however, this is the important thing when you play Cloggers. Never give up. There is no unwinnable matchup. Because even if the opponent has a deck that is really good against yours, you can still clog them. And they just don't find the cards that they need to beat you, even if they're in their deck. Sounds a bit villainous, maybe, but that's the beauty in playing Cloggers. You never know if you even win against a player with who's like a very unfavorable matchup against you, because they simply can't find their cards because you help them not to find their cards with some friendly clogging. Friendly neighborhood clogging. That's what we're about. Okay. And there's one other thing that I remember that I just wanted to bring in, even though this prelude to the deck guides getting to the guides getting very long, and that is that sometimes, especially if you know the opponent's deck well, you can make a conscious decision to go multiple cards down in round one, and to clog your opponent multiple times in round one, and you go down to maybe two, maybe even one card in your hand, whereas the opponent passed 4 or 5 cards ago. And you might think, has Crozier lost his mind? Why would you do that? The reason is, Kolgrim functions over the course of multiple rounds when you pass at 1 or 0 cards in hand. So when you play to 1 card in round 1, your opponent has like 4 or 5 cards left. You will have much fewer cards than your opponent in round 2. And if you know, or if your best guess or your best chance at winning the game is that your opponent has not found a way to deal with both Fion and your Kolgrim by the time you're in round 2, then even if you're 4 or 5 cards down, you just play Fion, you play Kolgrim, and because you are at Adrenaline 1 the entire time now, while your opponent is playing their cards, Kolgrim keeps growing and growing and growing way more often than it would in a normal game. Like, you can have a much bigger Kolgrim that way. You're basically sacrificing card advantage, and then every turn that you don't play a card because you sacrificed card advantage earlier is basically as if you played a card that is worth the difference between your opponent's deck and your deck. And that can be something like 12 points. So essentially, you're 3 cards down, but every card that you're down, you're basically playing like a 12-point spear tip on the board. I mean, admittedly, all on the Kolgrim, so 1 reset's enough to beat you, or 2 if you've got a defender. But that's why you clock them beforehand, so they don't find their answers. And then sometimes, especially if you're like, shoop, once they find the Yurden, we're dead. We don't even have last say here. This is our last chance to win the game. You push for that last resort strategy, and you just 2-0. That happens often enough.
I've been a victim to that before.
A victim, and probably also the perpetrator. Okay, is there anything you want to add, Jess, before we wrap up this part of the video?
I think I have said most of the things I wanted to say. Maybe I can add one more thing to the bad matchups for this deck. So it's things like Kelly, and also recently the discard SK package, especially when they found all their discards, like Coral and Burner and all the skulls. Yes, that can be quite challenging because Colgrim's going to be a small boy.
It's going to be a small Grim, and of course, all the bricks you give them, they can just discard.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's another very tough matchup. And ultimately, therefore, you can play this deck right now. You can get into the high 2.5 K MMR probably. Some of our viewers have done it. We've also climbed a bit. I think mainly Jess. I haven't played a lot of Nilfgaard yet this season. We'll see how far we get now. But overall, I would say while there are some challenging decks, it's not a hopeless cause, and you can still play it on the pro ladder or below with quite some success.
Or if you really want to get into pro ladder, just play this.
Okay. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this part of the video already, and now we're going to go into 1 or 2 games where we see how far we get with our clogging approach. And yeah, tell us in the comments if you felt like there are some other strategies that we might want to talk about and that we have forgotten to mention for this type of deck. And also I want to point out there are a few different versions. I'm not sure if I've said this already now. Earlier, there's a few different versions how to play Cloggers. There's an engine version out there. There's the old version with Eskel, Pathfinder, and some other changes to the deck. We'll put them into the description below, and then you can see if you find some of these other approaches a bit more interesting. This was the version that we had the most success with, however.
Yes.
And of course, there's also non-Serenova versions with Letho, double Colgrim, double Theon, Renew, things that make
double
you play
metal.
Colgrim twice. But we felt like we didn't have as much success with those. I felt a bit too much all in on the strategy, and then this was a bit more consistent. Anyway, let's get into the first game.
Let's do it. Hopefully we don't queue into Kelly.
We're gonna queue into the best matchup possible. You're gonna be playing ranked. Oh boy.
Yes, just to clarify, I've gotten high scores at this for the past few seasons. I'm 2540 with this season, and I know a few people that have watched my stream have reached high 2500s, almost 2600 with this deck.
Yeah, last season with a similar version of this deck, I was at 2640 by the end. So
oh boy.
It's definitely not to underestimate. Yeah, I kind of autopiloted the mulligan and the knickers, of course, because it's a thinning card that you don't want. We have Blaze of Glory. If this is discard, we might be in trouble. Win. Yeah, we can still win, but we have to keep in mind this is one of the more tougher matchups. Now, you don't really want to have 2 mentors in hand, but you also don't really want to play Hunting Pack from hand. So I would say we kick this first, and then we kick 1 mentor.
Yes.
Okay. Well, at least we didn't. Like, yeah, nope. At least we didn't brick though, which is good, I think. And so basically, we are on blue. The opponent might decide once he sees that we're Cloggers, which we can't really hide particularly well. He's probably not going to give us any card to clock with. He might discard all his cards so that we never get a clock through.
Yes. So when you're against Cloggers and you're on red, you want to most likely discard 3 cards or play a special card such as Gutting Slash, because you can't clock someone with Gutting Slash in round 1 and then pass at 7.
Yeah, I would actually suggest that we play Allbrick. I think right now people don't always associate Allbrick with Cloggers completely, so he might not discard here. And it's just thinning, it gets roach out. We want to do that in round 1 anyways. We're not sabotaging our game plan playing in this sequence. And look at this. We're already at 17 points and we thinned 3 cards out of the deck. That's just Cloggers things for you. And the opponent just gave us something. Yeah, he's playing into it. He gave us a target for the clogging. Now, of course, the boat's actually really dangerous for Colgrim in round 3, because the boat actually kills Colgrim when he comes onto the board. You might even consider keeping a boat if you see that your opponent played both imprisonment charges, because this is what I'm going to say. No, I am probably still in favor of clogging this soon, or even right now, because we have a leader charge if he plays this in round 3 to keep our Colgrim safe. But
Sure.
it basically means if the opponent knows you've played both leader charges, or if you see your Clogger's opponent use both of them, they rarely keep an answer to deal with your longship before Colgrim comes down. It can insta-win you the game. But this, of course, also means you should keep track how many coded weapons they've used, because that's usually one of the very few answers they have against it. And they play another one.
So, I think in this case we'll play Cynthia and we'll start doing the clog.
So if we keep the count, now we played one out of 8 clogging cards, and now this is the second one, which is fine. You can clog your opponent up to 4 or 5 times in round 1 as well, because they can't even deal with all the clog you've given them. If you clog them by 5 now, he's still gonna draw into 2 clogs, right? 3 draws, 2 mulligans. So it's fine to clog them in round 1 this much as well. We are down, we are not down, but we're up 2 clocks now, and then we're going to go to 3 clocks, and we could consider going for a 4th and a 5th clock with Gotha Gwent, and he would already be in a bit of a bad situation.
I think we can kill the Grey Sword with the Joust here.
Of course,
Joust like removal.
Of course, you have a little bit of removal here that you can also use besides clogging. And when the opportunity presents itself, you can take it. Sometimes you don't want to actually kill a Greatsword in round 1 because it gives them a better Hjalmar, and this also indicates to us now that he's got Hjalmar, which is a bit of a threat under certain circumstances for us. But also so far, this doesn't seem like the discard package. I'm not sure if they run this.
They don't run boats and they don't run Greatswords, so this would indicate that it's not discard.
And then this would actually be a pretty good matchup for us. I think we should do more clogging. Do you agree?
Yes.
On which tide?
The Raiders. We don't want to give him more boats.
Yeah, too many boats is not good. That could lead to quite a lot of trouble later. I think at this point we might as well flip the magic then. He's got plenty of targets anyway.
Because boats are a long-term engine, whereas Raiders, it's just a once-off deal 2 damage.
Yeah.
Oh. I think we can
don't
play...
kill it. Oh, okay. So, of course, that's actually a little bit of a pro tip here. Not every Cloggers version runs Battle Prep, but some do, and they have very few targets for it, actually. They have Afan, and they have Theon, and they have Menno. That's it. So, in this situation, if you were the opponent, try to shut down the soldiers to deny some of this value. It's a minor thing, but it can make the difference, right? I think I would actually want to do this now.
Yes. Do it. So we've clogged him 3 times.
We missed our window of opportunity for the hunting pack, but what we can do is you could go Gotha Gwent.
Oh, but we have it. We have it now if you want.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I guess we can just thin. Because the thinning is also very important. They don't have that many cards that completely shut down your strategy. Even if they have Morkvark and Iced, you usually try to get them out in round 2. And then you can just win with your remaining cards very frequently. So I would suggest we can just play the hunting pack now.
We could also consider playing Gotha Gwent now to clog, because then when we play hunting pack, we can also play the order ability.
That's true.
To clog even more.
That's actually a good point, because we need to wait a turn. Again on the Raiders here. Since it's an order, and then we could
stunning blow or something.
Consider the stunning blow. The raiding fleet does have a target right now, so it's not an option, but yeah. Or we wait until the raider died, which is going to be after we play the hunting pack, and we might play a bit deeper here still. At some point we could even consider passing, I guess. It's actually a bit of a rough call. We don't want to have a long run. We got to get the ice out. But he's getting, I mean, he's a lot of points down. Oh, what?
Already? Okay, don't do that as the playing against clock.
So this was extremely desperate, and I don't think this is ever the right way to go.
Yes. I think we can play hunting pack now.
Yeah, and I think it clearly seems to be intending on continuing his play into the round. I wonder if this was a misplay because he might have Hemdall, because he's so eager to rest this. I don't know. Do you think we should wait a turn before we clock the raiders, or you really want to clock the stunning blow? It's quite a lot of damage on. Because it's quite a lot of damage on the Fion.
Yeah.
That I would like to avoid. Oh yeah. That's actually a pretty good play, of course. That's a solid amount of points. And we can put the Raider back into his deck now.
Yes.
So you see, in this case, we didn't really put super bad cards into his deck, but we still have a pretty big gap here, and we might find out what he's got left in his deck now, right?
Yeah, I would play Mentor just to get some reach, like a big reach away from him.
Focus on its
12 provision, that means he's got Blood Eagle in the deck.
Yes, because he already played Harald. This has to be Blood Eagle. It's the only other 12p card in the deck that we know of, traditionally. And
Yes.
so we know how many times that we clog him now. Let's count. Once, twice, thrice, 4 times. So I believe we clocked him 4 times. He's barely gonna get a good card here. I think we should still War Council.
I think it was 5 times. There's 2 Viper Witches, Gothic Great, that's 3, Cynthia, that's 4, and the Code of Weapons. Which
So
is
he's actually only drawing into pretty bad stuff. I would still War Council here.
Yes.
Here, for example, Cyrenova is also great because they should struggle killing her unless he's got a
Hjalmar. Oh, he doesn't even have a Hjalmar.
He would need iced to kill her.
Yes.
And then he can't even dry pass us for card advantage for round 3. And Morgvark's out already before we even played Defender. Okay.
We can...
We could clock a 6th time.
but then we have to play Leader.
Yeah. I'm not sure if we want that. I
Do
mean,
we risk
maybe
Roderick?
because the Roderick could really brick us hard. I have to really hurry now.
Yeah.
Oh, right click spam. Oh, yeah, that was close.
And it's fine if we lose uneven, because we have clogged him 6 times, I believe.
Yep, 6 times. There's only garbage in his deck. He might even have to play another Wincon here, and then we should still be fine. Yeah, look, he played as iced. He drops 1 of the bad cards. He won uneven, but look what he played. He played iced, Morgvark, and Harald. That is maybe actually an interesting idea, because now he can still try to Blaze of Glory or Kogrim, right? And now he should, maybe to give both perspectives, keep in mind we should try to make our Kogrim big enough to survive his Yuta, but he should try to save, for example, a Raider to increase the removal range that he has on his leader.
But he also needs to get through our Defender.
That's the thing, and that's the question if we'll be able to do that here. He's probably going to push now. We have, I think we just get Coral. we just get Cyrenova out, yeah.
And then
More
we
thinning.
can also apply pressure, try to find a Vigor.
And the important part to note here is, of course, even if we are forced to play Kogrim, which, if we're honest, could definitely happen, we could actually know what this last card is.
It's either, it's probably a boat or the Guardian.
Okay.
Or another Raider. I think I gave him 3 Raiders.
I wonder if we would have a Kogrim here. He can kill it with Leader. And we still have carryover that we probably win with. Because, I mean, we could also try to find Artorias, but then we might have to play Artorias and him, and then we only have a Viper Witch and Mentor left.
Yeah.
I think I'd rather play Kogrim,
The Kogrim.
and I think the only way he should be able to kill him, if he tries to do so, is with Leader, and then we should still be able to win if we find Artorias into a 12-point Viper Witch and Mentor that plays for 14 points, sorry, 15 points, because he grows by 1 from Assimilate. 15 plus
Leader?
3 is 18. Oh, he doesn't even have Yuta, I think. I wonder if that's Hjalmar. It might be. It's an interesting
he
approach that he
doesn't have-
has.
Couldn't have drawn it to you.
Oh yeah, it's not.
Very corpses.
Okay.
So we need. We actually need vigor.
No. This is also fine. This is 7, 8, 9, 10. We'd be at 18 minus 2 is 16.
Okay.
It's either defender or Vigo. It has to be Vigo in this case.
There we go.
And we know it's enough points.
Blood Eagle.
Could have maybe considered going for the Viper Witch and a leader charge, maybe. But this way we still have 8 points of carryover, and we have guaranteed draws here with Defender, Viper Witch, Mentor, and Menno. That should be our best options. He went through his clocked cards, however, so he has a chance of finding his good stuff now. Don't need the Joust, and yeah, I think the Menno is just a bit more flexible.
Menno.
It's always Menno. And it's, yeah, I think it's Menno here.
Yeah.
So, I wonder if there's actually a reason to wait with Viper Witch and Mentor. He might have Turkey actually, so we should do this right away. Oh no, there's no target for Turkey.
Turkey doesn't matter.
Yeah. So should we just go Viper Witch and Mentor? He should not have an answer anymore.
Yeah, let's go for it. Wait, by playing Defender, it protects damage from Scourgel.
That's good. Yeah, that's a good point. We can play Defender. I guess it doesn't hurt. I was briefly worried that maybe the opponent gets out a tall provision card that makes the Mentor worse if we wait for too long. That can sometimes happen. So as the opponent, you should always consider here. For this deck, it's probably a bit too difficult, or impossible. But in general, you should always try to consider, okay, does my opponent have Mentors left? They usually have 4. 1 from Gotha, 1 from Notorious, and the 2 in the deck. And if yes, can I tutor my tall provision cards out of the deck already so it doesn't end up playing for 12 points? Yeah, okay. I was demonstrating for the video's sake, but of course here the better play would have been to play for Joust. We should win here anyway. What we can also do is this, by the way, which I think is next best option. Yeah, and the opponent concedes. So of course in this case the opponent made a bit of a mistake, I think, the way he committed, but to be honest, this is a very good matchup for us. It's one of these cases where we have Devotion against us and they don't have the removal necessary. They used all the removal they had in round 1 and 2, and then we still had too many points over them in round 3. So I think in this case they should, if you find yourself in this situation at all, if it's at all possible, try to win round 1 or 2, keeping at least Iced or Morgvark. Yeah, and you can go to round 2 when you give up round 1, and then you have something like Harald and stuff. You just shouldn't play that dead Harald in round 1. I think that's that didn't go anywhere, right? If he had that Harald in round 2, we might not have been able to push so deep. He might have been able to keep his ice, and then he might have been able to win here by points in round 3. Maybe. I didn't do the math now, but that's maybe a better line against Cloggers.
Also, if you see imprisonment, it most likely will be Cloggers most of the times. Well, I would say most of the times, because I've seen most of them are Cloggers these days. But sometimes people mulligan their best cards, such as Harold and Iced, because they don't want to use it in round 1. But don't do that against Cloggers, because you might not find them if you do not draw Blood Eagle.
Another Ice. Maybe this time we're facing the discard package, or this time the opponent plays a bit more cleverly. And of course, Nikas has to be mulliganed here immediately.
Good boy.
And at least 1 hunting pack, because we're bricked right now. And then it's the Alpha, and there's no choice this time. Otherwise, if it wasn't a brick, we could have maybe considered kicking Colgrim, because you don't want to play him round 1. But in this case, the brick is of course higher priority.
So, we don't have Ulrich this time.
Yeah, we can't debate, sadly.
So we just started the Cynthia, I guess.
So that's maybe the next thing. If you were this opponent, you should strongly consider, as you see this card coming down, now that this happened, You should probably very much consider discarding 3 cards, bronze cards, and watch me play desperately into them. Like, look at our hand right now. The place that we have left, Alzor into Siri, which is fine. But as we said, technically, you rather want to play round 2. And then you have Menno into a tactic,
Boosts.
which is okay, whatever. And then we're already getting desperate. We would have to play War Council probably. Okay, he plays into us, similar to the other opponent.
So not discard.
Yeah, I'm actually not sure if none of the discard package run the longships.
Oh no, they don't.
Okay.
They don't run any ships.
Okay, thought maybe there's like some weird version. So we would just start clocking again. Start the clock machine. First clock here, Menno comes down, and we go for quarter weapons. Just remember to keep a leader charge against that there's one more out there.
And also, a lot of times, as the Cloggers player, you do not want to clog them with more thinning cards, such as that Vabion on the deck, on the board.
Because then they would just... Yeah, Vabion would be a very bad clock target. Yeah. Is that what you're trying to say? So,
Yes.
obviously. Okay, 2 things happen here. First of all, we're sad the opponent found his Blood Eagle. That's not allowed. They're supposed to not find it. But okay, so be it. Second of all, we only need to clock to 4 now, because he's going to find a Blood Eagle. And the 5th card that we clocked kind of doesn't play a role, at least ultimately, immediately for round 2. Of course, in the long term for round 3, it is valuable again, so it's not like that we have to stop clocking. You never have to stop clocking. I think you only stop clocking when the whole world is clocked. That's when you stop clocking. Don't show Lionheart these scenes. Don't tell them we're doing this video. What should we do, Jess? Because these are not live.
Yeah, I know. This is an issue here.
I think we have to play double cross.
I also think we have to play Siri, yeah.
Otherwise, you could go War Council, but I'm starting to rope now as well.
We might break with that.
So that's the thing with Siri. I wouldn't lament this too much that we had to play her now. It's also good to have her go into round 2. He just has a few more options now, a few more chances to actually take her down or weaken her. The bigger deal here, I think, is that it was just a stalling play that allowed us to play value and defend, like, extend our position on the board, but also get to that point where we finally have Drillin 6 with the Viper Witches. And you need plays like that.
What? This? Scratch.
Alright, so I think we're gonna clog in with some hunters.
Okay. I was very briefly considering trying to YOLO the War Council for Coda Weapons Attorney Joust, but it's probably just a bit too risky.
Yeah, we might need that to buff Siri if she gets damaged.
That's a good point, actually. So we just go Viper.
Yes. And then, yeah, you can flip that if you want.
It's the tallest target for him, not sure actually if we should, but it makes it less likely he's gonna hit the Nova.
True, it gives him a Turkey though.
I mean, otherwise it's just one extra
Oh
point.
yeah, sure. I think you flip it. So now that Berserker is gonna transform into a token, which you can also clog in with. Okay, now he's going for damage on Siri. I think we can start clogging again, and then next turn we get the dogs out.
Let's just quickly make sure we clogged once, twice, thrice, so we don't really have to clog him more than one time to prevent him from finding anything but his Blood Eagle that we can't prevent. What were you gonna say, Jess?
And I was briefly considering giving him another hunter.
Yeah, I think it would have actually been not bad, because it was gonna die from it, right, before the thing ends.
So he's got Gutting Slash enabled for Siri next turn, if we want to try and find a buff for her. Because he's gonna damage Siri with the Raider, and then she'll be at 6, and he's got 3 Bloodthirsts.
Yeah, I was very briefly considering maybe passing, but I don't think we can.
No,
So you
we don't wanna do-
wanna try to find a buff immediately here.
Yes.
Ma
We can-
mor så tromkaith.
That outbreak is also a lot of points.
Maybe we can just go Albrecht, because I think it's quite
Yeah,
important that we
go
try to
Albrecht.
win this round. He's got a few threats here. We need the points on the board. This would actually give 4 boosts and 2 armor, which is nice against Skellige, but I think this is just too many points to pass out on.
My powers are yours to command.
And here you can see why it's so awkward to have Kogrim in your starting hand. This is obviously a card you do not want to play this round, but it sits in your hand together with the defender that you also don't want to play in this round. So this is another thing. You can sometimes just keep going against Kogrim because of situations like this where they have awkward hands. Now even gonna lose a Serenova. So he was playing all his I think we just have to go for this now.
Yeah.
It's actually our only play.
We can consider passing next round. Next turn.
Yeah, I would still go for the mentor,
Okay.
because the only way I think he can really overtake us there is with
He's mentor.
Morgvark. His mentor's not that big, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's only 11 points, or even less. I actually can't remember anymore what the starting value is for a mentor.
It's 3.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He can make more if he tries, maybe.
And he's got Hunter active next turn.
But I think this is gonna be a pretty significant play still. And also Skellige, of course, runs out of options at some point, right? We're like a bit of a cold war here, but both of us want to kind of not make a move with these cards that we have because they're so committal. Okay.
Very corpses.
He seems to have struggled with that idea, because maybe he doesn't have a efficient way of getting ahead. Maybe he only has like an ice or something, but I think we still go for Vigo to see what he has. This is also going to give us information. This is guaranteed, by the way. We only have these 3 bronze cards.
Strike first.
Okay, so he played Blood Eagle, which means he's got Harald in deck.
Yes.
I think we can consider, if he passes, to maybe go for Kogrim round 2, or at least Defender to see if we get us iced out.
Mm.
And we should pass. We have to pass after the next play. Okay,
Okay.
perfect. So wonder if the opponent could have done anything different here. He maybe in. No, actually not sure. He played this pretty well. Maybe push a bit deeper if his hand allows it. I guess they're also in this weird place where they both want to keep their good cards, so they can't be separated from them due to the clock. But they also want to play deep into the first round, and that is of course an issue for them. We kick the joust here, right?
Do we have golds in the pick?
1. So you're feeling Monka right now.
No, I think we have to. We don't have.
I
This
mean,
hand is not really proactive.
it's fine. We just end up not playing this card here.
How do we start?
Well, Defender would be the
All right.
obvious choice. But the thing is, of course, we have no good card for in between. What you could technically do is play Gwent into Alchemist and see what you find from him. And we
True.
will always be able to give him garbage instead. And then we can
True.
also club him some more. So I think maybe it's not a bad idea. Let's see what we get.
You're to use my decoction
Give
to
him
your
Trendy
advantage.
Joust. Oh,
Disappointing.
weak. This is not the good stuff.
Would have been nice if it was a gold.
I think
So
I'm gonna
you
take
want
this
that?
luck. And then we play Defender.
Yes.
Let their blood.
Can I just check? Yeah.
We click. We block click
Hunter
the hunter. Yeah.
because
Break
of
Hunter.
War of Clans. That is only 4p card in the grave.
Yeah, the break on Roderick is a bit unfortunate. That would have also made our Colgrim 2 points stronger, or also 1 point more health, but it actually doesn't matter that much here in this case. So far he hasn't broken through because he knows that the Colgrim is not out there yet. We have to play this because the other card's a dead card.
Don't use leader, he might
No, a goat
have
will
the
suffice for
second
now.
vote.
Because we gave him this one extra earlier.
Still has Harold, because he has. We know he's got Blood Eagle in the hand.
And another brick. Because
Yes,
remember, we bricked him so many times that basically, besides the cards he bricked on, all of his draws were garbage, right?
I think we got Colgrim now and lock the hunter.
Damn you all! Why would I kill a child?
I think what he might do.
He
if
might.
He's got Morpog and then.
He should go ice now on this and then Morkvark for this, because otherwise Colgrim is out of range. Yeah. You can go leader without ice. Very interesting idea. And then he goes Colgrim, Morkvark on this, but we're still ahead if he does that, right? We're 17, he's got 5, 6, 11. So we can pass if he plays Morkvark here. And he's got a dead ice. And he might not be able to find his good stuff.
Choose something.
Okay, that's pretty desperate.
Oh,
We have to pass, obviously.
He wants to get his Blood Eagle active.
Oh yeah, but we obviously have to pass. He's enabling his Blood Eagle, but that doesn't help with Morkvark. He needs Morkvark, and like that's the only card that wins now.
Yeah, he needs to have Morpog in hand.
Morkvark gets him ahead, and then we have to hope he doesn't find his. Yeah, he has him. Last cast Blood Eagle.
Yeah, he cannot tutor Morpog because Morpog's not.
He shouldn't have done that though, cause
Yeah.
I'm not sure if he only runs one barrel, but still we could damage things. And,
well, it's actually not looking too great.
nah, this one might fall flat for us. That was a good move from him with the non-iced play. So Roderick's dead, and
I think I want to kick the battle. Oh, all that.
I think actually the Marauder, because we just give him a better Blood Eagle target otherwise.
And luckily he goes first because now we
Can kind of no unit him a little bit, and his Blood Eagle might be relatively dead.
give him a joust.
Yeah, so I think the Joust is not bad on Mentor actually, so we coded weapons this instead.
When
Because the Joust on the Mentor gives him a shield, and then he can't do damage to us with something like Scordial.
So then when are we playing Battle Prep?
After Joust. I guess if he keeps his... Wait, what's this card? This is what
That's
we
Joust.
gave him. Oh, that's our Joust. Yeah, okay, then there's no point, of course. I don't know. I forgot that was our Joust. Because then he just
So he's got
jousted back.
Joust and Blood Eagle.
Yeah. We could even consider, if we see this card coming down, he can't play this, he can't play that. Okay, well we won the game, right? We played this last. So we
Yeah,
play
kill
this
that.
now. And now
Discard.
we just discard this and then Viper with Gemento wins the game. Yep.
So he's gonna discard Joust. Yep.
We discard Battle Prep because we don't want to give him a target here for his card.
Blood Eagle.
Blood Eagle goes bye-bye.
Oh, he just does that.
Focus on it.
And we win.
Quiet the noise in your head.
Okay. Okay, this is obviously perfect for you if you're playing against if you're playing as Cloggers, you're trying to find decks like this that struggle. I wonder if he could have done anything differently. He might have been forced in round 2 to play the way he did.
I mean, he played into round 1 also.
Yeah, he played. Yeah, just discard cards early in round 1, get out of there. That should be the better game plan probably. And then we have the uphill battle that we fight in round 2.
Mhm.
Okay, shall we do one last game?
Sure.
Okay. Let's see if we find a bit of a more challenging matchup, and then,
Kelly.
for example. Oh, it sounds elvish. Oh no, it's Kelly. It's actually
That's
Kelly.
Kelly.
You summoned the Kelly. You summoned the dragon.
Oh no!
Oh.
Other favorite death.
How are our heroes slash villains, whatever you want to look at us as, get out of this one?
This is very tough.
This is extremely difficult. Hand looks a bit better than before. I guess we kick Hunting Pack because we have Vigo here. I guess we kick Hunting Pack because we have Vigo here.
Nice.
Okay, so the hand's not nearly as bad as the last couple of games, but now the matchup's much more challenging. Starts here already. Yep, GG.
Because if we had Assassination in this deck, you could have considered Assassination and then obviously Leader to get rid of that series, but we're not running Assassination yet.
Yeah, a former version of the deck used to be like this. It's one of the versions we linked below. So you might consider, if you're Kelly, if you want to be super duper careful and you just know it's Cloggers that you're playing against, buffing this. Because if I have Assassinate here, 6 damage plus 3, series toast. Or just play something else before.
Like Defender.
Yeah. Because here, I think we just have to try to survive the round.
Yes.
And just keep going. And just
Again,
maybe Albrecht.
yeah. We're gonna give him a
I live to serve.
Guardian to draw this round.
Oh yeah, that's the one nice thing. We can just give him a Guardian, so that's not going to help him a lot this round. But it also means the clock is one worse.
Mm-hmm. So this matchup is also pretty difficult when you're on blue against Kelly because they're gonna Defender and then Siri Dash, and you have no way of answering that, especially the Defender.
I guess we can just play Doggos.
Yo.
The senses can be fooled.
Also want to get these out so that you don't play them into Kelly later.
Yeah, and also not get into Forktail. He might Forktail us soon here.
Yeah.
Yeah, in general, by the way, I do want to point out that one of the core ideas, of course, if you want to play against Colgrim, is to try to get the Colgrim out of the opponent, and that you push to the point that they have to commit it in round 2. That's usually one line that you want to take. So now we have to play this to
Yeah.
Breaker.
Good boy, Nickers. Is he gonna come out? Mm-mm.
What do we have here?
Oh, we got a drone.
We got a clock target.
Clog.
Yeah, that's something you should try to avoid against Cloggers. Don't make things like this.
Even if he's got a forktail, that's something we can also clog him with.
Because later we're not gonna go this wide anymore.
And also later, he's not gonna play bronze units for us. He's just gonna slam down the Thrall, Beast, and Kelly.
I'm actually wondering, Jess, would we ever coded weapons unlock just so that the Phantom's gone and we have a higher chance of surviving this round?
Yeah.
It's the last
I think
chance we have to
that's
do that. We don't want to clock the Phantom. So we do it
Unless
this way
it's
around.
round 3.
Yeah, maybe there could have been a thought to do it so that it's less likely he'll find Yeet Wave and stuff, but...
Oh.
So he turned the coin around, but we won the round. We have to keep pushing now, of course.
Yes.
I have
Obviously, because we don't want to go into long round 3.
I have a
as
slight echo
Cloggers.
coming from you, Jess. Yeah,
Should
I'm not
be
sure why.
fine now.
I think it's whenever I'm set too loud on your end.
I put you quieter now.
Okay, so I think the Viper Witcher Mentor is one too many here. You can only play 3 at most. We might
Yeah.
play Clock with this, but against Kelly you never know if that's actually going to happen. And that's more clicking. We have to go deep into the round. We're gonna get Serenova with Alza's double cross, and we'll find Colgrim. Colgrim. We'll find Menno into War Council with Roderick. So we're gonna actually thin quite a lot this round. And I think I would actually start with Siri here.
Yeah.
I don't think we have to be afraid of Dave or anything like that.
Yeah, he's just gonna purify it anyways.
I mean, then he doesn't purify the defender. But I think at this point we also have to kind of implore wishful thinking here. We know this deck runs a lot of answers for us. If they find everything, we're probably toast. So we clock, push, bleed, try to get as many answers out of him this round, and then hopefully have enough oomph to beat him round 3.
Again.
I think we just get Menno into War Council into like battle prep.
Oh, just, yeah. If, oh no, yeah, battle prep, never mind. I don't know why I was thinking
No mercy.
that. Yep.
I propose we present them two scabbardless souls.
And as you guys can see, we're already gonna stand to 0 for next round.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Kelly also has Wrath, Imler's Wrath, and Heatwave, Spores, and Purify. So that's why this matchup is also very tough, on top of not giving us clogging targets. And us not being able to deal with their engines with our locks because they can veil it.
I think in the very rare cases they can even run a maxi or something like that. I think I've seen that.
Oh yeah, they do.
So that's just the icing on the cake, insult to injury. This opponent's playing very slowly. Sometimes that means he's like wondering what to do. Okay, he found a Nyromancy as well. This is really bad when this happens to his clog. Pro tip, as the anti-clog player, draw your cards like this one. Draw it, and then you're already into advantage. Because now you can tell we're running out of options here, right? We could kill the Nithril again with Coda Weapons Leader.
Yeah.
Because we don't want him to hit our stuff all the time. And we don't want to give him a second one either. Maybe again you could consider doing it because we'd rather face a Nithril round 3 than a Heatwave, but I don't know.
And now it gets awkward, like what are we gonna clog him with? Okay,
that's what we're gonna clog him with. Okay, we got him. Ladies and gentlemen,
What's better than
we got him.
I would actually consider as the Kelly player to discard this sometimes. Unless I have all my gold cards already, but then he must understand that we're gonna push him so deep that he is gonna end up playing some of these in hand. So if he okay.
He needs to mulligan these.
Oh man, yeah.
Your life was worth a great deal, my lord. Take comfort in that.
This doesn't have to say that we win the game now because this is happening, but this is at least giving us a chance. It's like a fighting chance, yeah. So the thing is, though, if he knows he has an Iromancy, right? And all he needs to keep is one other answer, and then he's probably pretty set already on the next round. We're gonna do this for another one.
On the Ruckus thingy.
Yeah, that's actually even worse.
For him.
It's nothing personal.
Mm-hmm.
What you can also consider doing is next round actually keep that Gothic Wit, so we can put Igan back in his deck.
Yeah.
Potentially. If he plays Neuromancy already. I don't know. That's just an option that you guys can do.
Yeah, it's an option.
If we get 13 points on mental, that means he's got Kelly in the deck.
The next highest card would be the Cynthia, so this would mean he gets 7 points less on the oh. Interesting. He's triggering me to play Fion now. He played his Onaromancy already, he needs to have the answers in hand, all of them.
That's true.
But he's got the Igern to just do the
Wrath. think we play mental.
Yeah. We'll see what's on the deck. Is it
Focus on its
okay?
No,
So
he's got
this,
Kelly in hand.
this gives us information, right? This means that Kelly is in his hand. Heatwave is in his hand.
That's Wrath. That's in his deck.
Wrath in his deck. Okay.
Wait, isn't Wrath 8 provision?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not exactly sure. So I wonder if I think we do what you suggested, because we are still gonna play one Viper Witch and Mentor. We're probably gonna try to make it a bit bigger than this. And he has his Oneiromancy and his answers already.
That's Osral. Osral's 9p.
It could be. Kelly, that's so this is interesting because it's gonna allow us to put Kelly back into his deck and play Mentor for the full 13 points in round 3. But we have to pass you now. We just have to hope he lacks the second answer for Corgrim here. It's looking bad, but as I said, it's just the matchup, and when they find a Neuromancy, it's very difficult to deal with it.
So, let's see. So he draws a Neuromancy, and there were 3 or 4 bricks that we gave him? I think it was 3.
Yeah,
We
he's
gave
sitting
him
on some hounds, which we can actually farm at the beginning here.
Also,
He's doing 2 things, of course. He's playing around Agothor with the Igen, and he's also making our Mentor even worse. Right? And we just did this now.
yes.
And we are gonna end up putting Kelly back into his deck.
Yeah. He wants to get a tall unit. It might be. Because he might want a Wrath.
Can we prevent that? So this is an 11. If we hit this, it's a 9 only. But then we give him more value on this.
But then he gets Heatwave on our cover.
So yeah, maybe the right play is to actually hit the Osral. The thing is, it's extremely likely you'll have a way of buffing this Osral again. But we have to go for a win con right now, right? Our win con would be he only has a Heatwave and a
Wrath.
Imler's Wrath. So as we do this,
He can't kill it.
this is an 11 now, essentially. He can't kill this with Wrath, and he won't be able to kill Corcoran with Wrath either. So he has to use Heatwave here, and that might give us a chance. We're gonna play Gotho and Kelly next. Okay. He probably has Spores in hand too. We just jammed this, right? And put Kelly in because it makes him grow by 1 more point. He can't kill it with Wrath. He might have a Spores.
But even then,
He should still win because he's got last say. Spores deals with Quorum. Like, he should just... Yeah. He has that in his last card as Spores, I'm pretty sure. There's no other play we can make anymore at this point. 7 points. He needs to have an exceptionally bad card. Should be... What card?
Maxi, maybe?
Oh!
Oh, we won!
Flawless performance of the Cloggers deck. I was getting words ready to say, like, oh, look, for all the Cloggers haters, happy end for you. But I guess not. So this is what we mean. This is what we're trying to say. And obviously, I understand this can be frustrating for the opponent. But I think it's also a very unique playstyle for the game. That's a lot of fun to play when things like this work out. Even if it's a horrible matchup like Kelly, there is a chance to win. That being said, you saw... This guy gave us his Wild on Hounds when he was winning round 2 by a mile. And if he hadn't done that, we couldn't have clocked him. We would have probably found better cards. So it might be frustrating to play against a deck like this, but he could have done some things better that would have made it much more likely for him to beat us here.
He could have also played that behind a Defender, which because he didn't find Defender at all, but he could have considered getting Defender with a Neuromancy and playing the Hounds behind that so that we couldn't clog him.
Yeah.
Unless we want to clog him with more Defenders.
Okay.
Or Igans.
But yeah, that was basically our guide. I think at this point it's almost like an ultimate guide, the amount of time that went into this now. 3 games and like a 30-minute explanation. So if you still have questions regarding Cloggers, clog the comment section with them. I think I want to see the clogging up with the Cloggers comments.
Or you can ask us in the council's Discord.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, if you have any feedback for us, if you like the video, if there's things you would like to see improved upon, or that you liked, of course, you can also mention that. But personally, I'm welcoming any type of feedback. I'm sure Jess does as well. Keep it constructive and wholesome. And yeah, it's not always going to be something like Cloggers that we're going to do deck guides for, but yeah, maybe as a funny way to start the council participation, we thought this was a good idea. Any?
Yeah. Also, can I just mention one more thing?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I remember if we mentioned that this is credit to Energix from all of his lists. It's kind of like his lists combined, not just one. He gave me, well, I found one of his lists 2 months ago during that season, and I played that also last season with a twist of mine. And then I took that list with his new list from this season and I combined it together. That's basically it.
Exactly. It is the perfect Cloggers abomination. All of the previous versions, and now amazing. Okay, thanks everyone for watching. That lovely person down there was Miss Lady J. You can check her out on her Miss Lady J Twitch channel and on Twitter.
And the other lovely person above me is Crozier, which you can also find Crozier on Twitter. I think it's Crozier1.
Crozier1.
And on Twitch, it's just Crozier.
Yeah, we'll have to work out this whole plug in each other thing. But we'll probably have like links in the description anyway. Yeah. Anyway, see you guys and enjoy the league season that's currently going on. Enjoy the council. Enjoy Gwent. Take care, guys.
Bye.